This episode of 6'5 Guys is brought to you by Defiance Machine, defying tradition with innovation. Elr Rifles, precision on another level. JC Steel Targets, the industry leader in quality AR-500 steel targets.
We're here at ELR Central at the inaugural world record event with Doc Beach of Applied Ballistics. Doc, what can you tell us about this particular event and what makes it different from others?
So this event is a true test of skill because you get 3 shots and 3 minutes to go 3 for 3 at a target of your choice. Pretty simple. You set up your gear, you hit or miss the first shot, and that determines whether or not you're going to succeed. This is a cold bore event. No sighters, no practice, no nothing.
And Doc, we were talking earlier about standards. I mean, share with the audience the importance of the standards, how you're promulgating them, and how, you know, they're going to be events globally.
Yeah, so ELR Central is just a method to get the information out. The rules here and everything that you see was really a culmination of 30 different people in the industry. Many major players, many major companies and shooters were involved in setting these rules and these guidelines up, but they are universal rules that can be recreated anywhere in the world. If you have a range and you can follow the very simple guidelines, and we plan to keep them simple as a community, then you can do this anywhere. And that can be shared, the results can be shared, and it's really going to advance through tomorrow because there's another meeting with all of the people who put this together, and we're going to see what worked, what didn't work, and we're going to turn around and we're going to share that with everybody that are currently trying to set these events up. This event is rolling, but there are actual entities that are getting the ball rolling on more of these in other countries.
I think you even mentioned France.
Yeah, there's a group in France, and there's some other groups in some other countries that have started to put the facilities together and get all the things necessary to make this happen, because it has to be a public event. That's part of what makes it real.
I met somebody here today over lunch that was here from Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
yes.
Being part of Applied Ballistics and being able to, participate in testing of a lot of different labs, I'm seeing you're kind of on the cutting edge of a lot of ballistics technologies that's really, trying to reach out farther, more precise, more accurate. What do you think are some of the kind of new innovations to this side of the sport that you've seen in the last couple of years?
The weapon systems are the biggest, and this has really pushed bullets. Before, we weren't pushing the transonic stability. We kind of were, but not like we are now. Now we're looking for bullets that are stable at 2 miles, and bullets that can cut through the wind and make wind calls something that you don't have to be an absolute master to make happen. So the technology has been in the powder. We've got slower, more efficient powders. We've got better bullets that have come from it, more stable bullets. And we've got rifle systems where everything has been created in a way that cold bore shots can be made. And somebody probably just set a new record, was what that screaming was. Mm-hmm. But we've got a lot of people that went two out of 3 here as well. So. Yeah. There's going to be more stuff you see at this SHOT Show too. We've seen it out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Doc, you talked about transonic stability. I guess it's very relevant in this particular game because at these distances you're subsonic when you're at the target.
Right. You've got to be stable through the transonic zone, and in order to get a heavier bullet in a specific caliber, you must make that bullet longer. We can't go wider. The caliber is the caliber. Well, when you go longer, then you've got more of a chance of destabilization, so you've got to spin them faster, but you've got to make sure that you don't spin them too fast, and the bullet's got to be able to handle it. So the bullet technology has really just exploded in the past couple years for this game, because when you shoot a 375, the bullet's got to fit in there. So if you want more weight, you've got to add more length.
Very interesting. Well, Doc, we appreciate you taking the time with us this afternoon, and it's good seeing you again out here.
Good seeing you guys.
Great event, Doc. Thanks.
We're outside Pahrump, Nevada at the ELR Central World Record event.
Yeah, I know.
And Paul, you just made a record, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I was the first person to go 3 for 3 at 1,500 yards today.
Awesome.
So Paul, tell us a bit about the sport. I think our viewers, in looking at your rifle here, will realize that the equipment is a little different than what they might be used to. So share a bit about the sport and the equipment. So
well, we want to have something that's a credible record. In that, I'm meaning that, you know, you could go from a cold bore shot and hit 3 shots on a plate at any given distance. We feel that that's a credible record, a world record. It's fun and it's okay to go out and shoot on your own and go 1 for 3 or maybe 1 out of 10. We've seen as many as 1 out of 50 or 1 out of 80. That's fine, but to consider a world record, we wanted something that would be very credible. And all this is related to the military and law enforcement. We want something that's going to be applicable with all of our technology and innovation, that they can take this forward and develop future innovations for sniper rifles for our military and our law enforcement, and also long-range hunters. You know, all this technology can be used for all those entities. So that's kind of the rationale here. But we're not saying that, we're not condoning what other people do. We want to establish something that a lot of the top level, you know, world champion shooters, national championship shooters from many different disciplines are coming together. We've got PRS shooters here. We've got ELR shooters. We've got F-class shooters. We've got long-range hunters. We got 3-gun guys here. We got people from all over that are multinational champions and world champions. So it's pretty cool to see all this happening. Yeah. And it's kind of neat to see, you know, what is winning, what is making shots, and what isn't. There's a lot more than just a simple, effective cartridge on paper. It takes a spotter, it takes a wind guy, and it takes all that coordination to put all that together to make those cold bore shots at extended long range.
Now, you had mentioned this is a pretty impressive rig. Take us through a little bit about the components that you're using, and you know, why something like this would be necessary for ELR.
Well, obviously this is was built originally for the King of 2 Mile to shoot 2 miles. This rifle with the ballistics will shoot 2 miles with the Night Force ATEC R7-35 scope. It has about 135 minutes of angle, so I can actually shoot 2 miles without using the mil dot or the reticle.
Okay.
So I can go 35 power all the way up to 2 miles, and my ballistics will get me there. I'm coming in subsonic, but I'm still able to have enough elevation. So that was the premise. The weight that we originally had for King of 2 Mile was 50 pounds. That's why you have this big, huge Bartline barrel. It's 38 inches long. We're looking at maybe doing some other classes or standards in the future to get the weight classes maybe down to 25 or less, maybe for a military application. So that's something that we want to develop in our organization. But this particular rifle was built for King of 2 Mile. It's 50 pounds. One of the things why it's so massive is because it reduces your recoil, and your stability is much better too. So just going through real quick, you got the Night Force ATEC R7-35, Bartline barrel, the BAT 50 cal action. It's chambered in 375 lethal mag. The Macmillan ELR B stock, the Phoenix bipod, and Vixen anti-trigger, and I use an Edgewood bag with a Crosstech mat. And then this new product here is from GSO Technology. I've shot this out to 2 miles, and literally you take the can off and you shoot 2 miles, same point of impact, you put this thing on, it's incredible. One more thing too, you know, I'm on the Applied Ballistics ELR team, and you know, a lot of this stuff wouldn't be possible without those ballistic solutions. I mean, me and Brian Litz, we looked at all the environmentals, we plugged it into the Kestrel, we looked at the analytics, we put the solution on the gun, and it hit center mass. So I mean,
so you have custom drag curves already modeled for that?
Yes. So if anybody's getting into ELR, they really need to visit, you know, ELR Central and AppliedBallisticsLLC.com, because you need to understand the science of accuracy.
So it would be fair to say that if you're telling your spouse that you can reuse a lot of your equipment in this game, my AB Kestrel, I could use.
An AB Kestrel would be a good gift.
Yeah. Okay, good. So I can just tell my wife I'm reusing the same equipment.
That'd be good.
All right. Paul, again, thank you, and good luck this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
So, having shot PRS and coming back to ELR, you know, as I think about folks that are kind of looking at this side of the sport, You've shot PRS, you're like, gosh, I really want to kind of push things farther.
That's exactly it.
What sort of things should we be thinking of, aside from equipment? What sort of differences, what do you need to be prepared to do?
Your ammo making ability needs to be just pristine. Like, ammo is so important. This is my ELR rifle. This is a 375 Chi-Tac built by Robert Vestal, Vestal Custom Guns. It's a Stiller single shot 408 action. I've got a Rock Creek 8R 7 twist at 33 inches. It's a Mirage ULR chassis. It's about to be switched to the Macmillan Beast, which I'm super excited to get that thing built. My new Chi-Tac is going to be on the new JJ Rock action, so that's the best action I've ever felt. It's just ridiculous. But this one, I've got a Night Force 5-25 ATAC-R. I've got the Ivy Gen 3 rings here. Okay. Those have 52 mils of available travel. I've got 35 mils from my 100-yard zero in my turret, and then I've got 30 mils in the reticle. And then over here, for really going far, we've got the new TACOM HQ Charlie Tarak. And what this is essentially a prism system. And it's got two mirrors in there that refract your, basically your point of aim. So when I attach this thing, we've got rare earth magnets on the front of this system. You got to watch your fingers because it will mash them. See how hard that mates up right there. And then you've got two screws that you actually just, you don't need them, but if you have a lighter weight, heavy recoiling rifle, you put those two screws in right there.
Yeah,
so
let's actually bring this back.
Yeah, and for the folks in the audience, what you're trying to do is, a lot of folks, they're familiar, you'll have like maybe a 20 MOA base, right?
Correct.
So that you can get more elevation.
Correct. So 20 minutes, typically with most scopes these days, will let you get to at least the top quarter of your scope travel. So you can use at least 3/4 of your internal. This is a custom base set up for this rifle with this scope at this scope height. So it literally is to the click, bottomed out with a 100-yard zero, perfect. And then I've got the Ivy rings, like I said, which add an additional 52 mils. And then this Charlie Tarak, I actually have this one set up. Tomorrow we're actually going to shoot for 6,000 yards. We're supposed to have 1 to 2 mile-an-hour winds. We've shot this rifle already at 5,000 yards, and it's unbelievably consistent. We just haven't happened. My biggest target's 34 inches. We just didn't happen to hit the target the day we shot. And we're at sea level down in Texas where I shoot at 200-foot altitude. So we have extremely high pressures.
And the distances where you would want to employ this, what sort of distances are we looking at?
You can rechange the zero on this. So on this particular rifle, I've got this one set up where when I dial out my turret and my reticle, that's 65 mils, okay? This particular rifle, I'm shooting 400 grain cutting edge lasers at 2,850 feet per second. Down at sea level where I'm at, my 2 mile zero is 62 mils depending on pressure, but typically around 62 mils. Well, that's my turret and reticle maxed out. So I actually set this thing from the factory at 60 mils. So all I gotta do is slap it on and then fine tune it with my reticle. So the very first time I ever took this thing out, we had a target at 3,582 yards and we hit it on the very first shot. Cold bored it at 3,582. And so they're extremely accurate, they're repeatable. And then the furthest we shot, like I said, is 5,000 down at sea level a month ago when it was like 25 degrees. So we had 30.2 pressure, which is like a negative 2,000 DA. So we were just shooting through mud in the air, dropping a whole bunch. Well, now, tomorrow, we're supposed to have like a 26 station pressure at 45 degrees. I've got this thing set up for 120 mils. My Ivy rings dial 52, 35 in the dial, 30 in the reticle. So with my Garmin 701 with the AB Applied Ballistics solution, we ran the numbers on it. I need 232 mils for a 6,000 yard shot. I've got 236, I think, with everything. So we're gonna be maxing this system out, everything it's got, tomorrow. And will we hit it? Realistically, probably not. But hey, you never know. We're gonna document everything on video. I video everything through my phone scope and Swarovski spotter. And you know, we're looking at about a 19.5-second time of flight on the bullet. So, but if we're shooting in 1 mile an hour winds or dead calm, then we might scare it. So, and again, unrealistic distances to shoot. All we're doing is just seeing how far we can push it.
Now,
so
aside from the obvious equipment differences, this is a much more expensive endeavor, I would imagine, than your typical, what we would typically consider long range, right?
Ammo, yes. Rifle builds are about the same. Okay. So a Stiller Action's gonna run you $1,200. Mirage chassis, I think, is $15, depending on what setup you get. Barrels are the same cost. Scopes are the same cost. So your more expensive setups are gonna be in your Ivy rings if you wanna shoot that far, and then your Charlie Terac, which is around, I had mine expedited, so it ended up costing around $1,600 to have it shipped in a week. So,
but your consumables like the ammo, obviously.
Yeah, so, you know, we're shooting, if, you know, you have much better luck shooting lathe turn solids like cutting edge bullets. Ridiculous, just unbelievable.
What, about $1.50 each?
$1.80 for the ones that I shoot.
Okay.
I think, don't quote me on that. It's the 400 laser. You just go to the Cutting Edge website and check them out. But Peterson brass, best there is. Unbelievably consistent. I weighed 100 pieces of brass on a FX 120 scale. I had 0.4 grains of variation between 100 pieces. That's phenomenal.
But in the sport, you're not going to be shooting the volume of ammo.
Absolutely not. So you don't want to cook these barrels out too fast because it costs a little more in the gunsmithing to have these bigger things built. But you know, a good day, if I go out and practice, I've got a 9 by 12,000 yard field where I go train at. And that rifle, by the way, weighs 29 pounds as it sits. So
pretty heavy.
Yeah, it's fairly heavy. I've got a diamond, Trigger Tech diamond trigger set at 3 ounces on that thing. It's phenomenal. But a good practice day when we go out, we'll typically set out, you know, 4 or 5 pieces of steel in an array of wind direction. And we typically don't waste a whole lot of time inside a mile. These guns are so consistent. You know, at 1,000 yards, you're kind of wasting ammo.
That's a warm up.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, my rifle's only 5.1 mils to 1,000 yards, and it's like a 0.6 and a 10 mile an hour full value at 1,000. So, you know, if you're shooting at a 2-minute target, well, there's 0.6 mils right there. You're gonna hit the target every shot. So ELR is kind of about, you know, getting out of your comfort zone, seeing how far you can go with it. How far can we consistently get hit?
Ian, welcome.
Thanks.
And so Ian, you've shot a little bit of PRS. You've also shot now, obviously, ELR. So, you know, tell us a bit about your journey into ELR and why you're here.
ELR for me was just the natural progression of things. You know, you start shooting 300, 400, 500 yards, and eventually you were like, can we hit that over there? And as you go, the calibers get larger and larger, and you end up with ridiculousness.
Well, you're quite proud of your ridiculousness here. So just tell us a little bit about the round here.
This is called the 375 Typhoon. A friend and I put this together. This all started just off of a bet, actually. We were betting a barrel that one guy could develop a faster 7mm Wildcat, you know, within a certain set of parameters. What it came down to was that whoever had the faster barrel was going to win. So of course we both backed out and put our heads together, and this is what we came up with. It's an improved Shy-Tech. You know, we've taken a little case taper out, moved the shoulder forward, 35-degree shoulder, and a fairly short neck. But it is designed for these 377 cutting edge solids.
And so this is a cutting edge 400? Grain?
This is a 377 grain.
377, and what sort of velocity are you getting on these?
On this one right now, today, I was right around 3170.
Okay.
The H50 BMG powder and a 215 match primer.
Now, Ian, you were telling me earlier today that you just recently put your rig together for this match. So for the folks out there that are kind of interested in getting into this game, tell us a little about how you landed on your equipment configuration and exactly what you have in your rig.
So, all right, I'll start from the top down. This is a precision muscle brake.
Yeah.
Works really well. I've got a Rock Creek barrel. This barrel is a 1450 straight taper to 1250. So you can use it as a truck axle too. This is an Atlas 5H. We've got an XLR HD chassis, Stiller TAC 408, okay. pretty standard there, and then a 7-35 attacker. As far as dollar amount, 2,500 to 3,000 range.
Okay, not bad. Yeah.
Fairly average.
And this weighs in at?
We're right around 48 pounds. So under the limit.
What has been the biggest kind of challenge in transitioning from PRS to ELR?
Well, for me, it was the reverse. I had always gone out and shot ELR, and then transitioning into PRS, It was like, wait, you mean I have to shoot off what? But as far as now, primarily shooting PRS and coming to this, you get a little greedy shooting those 6mm. I'll say that. 6mm, 6.5, stuff like that. Even the guys shooting the 308s, it's not like shooting these rifles.
And in what respect?
The recoil itself, the muzzle blast more than anything can really affect you if you're not used to it. When I took this out for the first couple times, I actually plugged and ear muffed up just because it was bothering me.
Right.
After I was done fireforming the brass and stuff like that, I was used to it at that point. But in the recoil impulse, I think you get a sharper, faster impulse with some of these smaller calibers that we're shooting, where these ones are a real long push, and they move you. They physically move you. So.
And as far as shooting, I mean, do you see yourself being active in both PRS style shooting and ELR, or maybe favoring one over the other?
Personally, I really enjoy ELR. It's a blast. It's fun. I think that PRS is definitely going to stay my primary focus, and not taking anything away from ELR at all. I just think that there's a skill luck factor that flips at certain distances, where, as you saw today, you know how many shooters and how many people actually went 3 for 3 on those plates.
Right, very few. Yeah.
Right, so you can get out in a day with 1 to 2 mile an hour winds and feel like you can't miss, and come out here where it goes from a 7 to 13 and you're all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and even this morning, I mean, the winds were relatively mild, and you know, 1,500 yards, which you would think that with these type of rifles would be a relatively easy shot. No, not at all.
No, it's not. And I think we went this morning at 2250 was what we attempted first, and my buddy Dustin shot before me. I was calling the wind for him, and we had it pegged. It didn't change, 0.9, and his elevation was off, so no hit. I go up, we peg the wind, what we think is, you know, right around a mil 0.2, and I end up going between the stand and the gong for all 3 shots. You know, you look in your Kestrel and you go, what was that? And you go, oh, that was 1 mile an hour, 2 miles an hour. That if I'd have known how to call the Mirage within that, I might have been on plate.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not that good, you know. So
well, I mean, I think it also puts things in perspective too. I mean, you look at a cartridge like this, and the wind still has command and control. So
yes.
I think it puts things in perspective for even, you know, PRS shooters.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have Northwest definitely represented up here at the match. And Ian, it's good seeing you again. We'll see you at the local club match.
We will see you there.
Thanks, Ian.
Yeah. We just wrapped up the ELR Central World Record event here outside Pahrump, Nevada. Frank Galli, you actually helped RO this match. Tell us a little bit about your impressions of what you saw.
I was the RO of the match.
Okay.
It was really not a match, it was a world record attempt with standards. And so that's kind of what they're looking to do, is to establish a set of standards moving forward. That's why they gave the shooter options, what target they wanted to shoot, and then that shooter had to go 3 for 3. And that was what was going to establish a record, which we saw have happened this morning and this afternoon. Outstanding stuff. I thought it went really relaxed, really smooth, not a problem. Everybody was on their best behavior as far as the competitors go. But it was kind of mellow.
Well, I mean, and speaking of standards, I mean, clearly having UROing, they've achieved the highest
It's a
standards.
standard, yes.
The highest standards of ROing.
Iron-fisted.
Now, as a professional prognosticator of the shooting sports,
yes, sir.
This was the inaugural event. Where do you see this going?
Higher. I see it going out farther. I see it being replicated in other places. It'll change par times because the average shooter took about 1.5 minutes. So instead of a 3-minute par time, I think they could bring it down to 2 minutes. The 10-minute setup, I think, needs to be changed. But these guys, once they get their dope figured out, because this morning part of the issue was they had to walk onto the target. And to go cold bore 3 for 3 is your numbers have to be spot on. So you're going to see some refining of these extended distances in your data that way. The wind, as we saw, how are they going to manage the wind moving forward? But it's doable. Somebody did it, okay? And they did it well. So you're going to see it take off from there. It's pushing bullet design. It's pushing rifles. It's pushing barrel. All that stuff is just going to bring the sport 10 feet forward, you know, at a time. So that's a great thing.
Excellent. Well, great.
Perfect.
Frank, thanks for being out here and then spending some time with us to share your views on this sport and how it's evolving.
Yeah, thanks you guys for coming out. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Frank.
Cheers.